Our speaker tonight is Dr. Alan Glazier. Dr. Glazier is the founder and visionary behind ODs on Facebook and odsonfacebook.com, the eye care industry's largest and most highly engaged eye care organization online or off, with over 38,900 members. He is the founder of Shady Grove Eye and Vision Care, serving the Rockville, Maryland suburbs of Washington, D.C. He is a partner and business development executive in Total Eye Care Partners, enabling optometrists with mature practices a medical model legacy exit. In 2015, he was selected as one of the 50 most influential optometrists ever by his peers, and in 2017, he was honored as Maryland Optometrist of the Year. Welcome, Dr. Glazier.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I wish I could be up there. This lecture thing isn't what it's cut out to be when you have to speak to a computer camera. It's comforting to know people are on the other end of it, though, and part of the fun and passion I have for educating is to get in front of audiences and meet people and talk to you guys about your optometry lives and everything. So hopefully in the question and answer session we'll get to some of that. Today I'm going to be talking about the business of myopia control. I call it the business of myopia control business. It sounds repetitive, redundant, and it is, but it sounded good to me. The companies in the disclosure list here are companies I consult for that are engaged in myopia control business. I have other disclosures that just aren't relevant to this talk. So if anybody has any questions about those, I'll be happy to answer those in the session as well, the after session as well. All right, let's get to it. So the business of myopia control is, we all know that the business of correcting myopia is optometry. When you think about our practices without myopes, think if we had to subsist treating hyperopes and astigmats and diseases, it just wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't be as lucrative. So it's a big part of our business, the majority of our business. And myopia control is becoming the business of myopia because, as everybody here knows, it's only been around for a relatively short period of time, or on any level that we could apply it, implement it in our clinics. Look, this is a paradigm shift in the way we view these patients for us as well. So instead of going along with the old tried and true methods of correcting and what we now know is feeding the beast, we really owe it to our patients to keep up with the standard of care and practice this newer paradigm of optometry. The difference between what we currently do, though, and what myopia control is the time and the terminology and getting the concept across to parents. Because really what happens is people are set in their ways of what they think is going to happen in that eye exam when they come in with little Johnny. And these are people also, usually myopes have two myopic parents, and parents come in and they're used to hearing their whole life that they're going to need to get a new prescription. So they sit in that chair, they look at their phone or they read their magazine while you examine their child, and there's no surprise at the end of the exam that their child's prescription has increased. Well, that's not necessarily the case anymore of any significance for most children. So getting this across to parents is the real mission that is behind building a business of myopia control. Talking to parents is also one of the longest parts of this as well. And I have some concepts I'm going to present in here, some tips for talking to parents, and have a whole nother lecture on that. That's another 2 hours. So hopefully we'll get that to you at some point. So the first thing in marketing, anything that you do, especially, I'm going to call this a specialty, even though, like I said, I think this is general optometry, but right now it's so new. The first thing you do in marketing a product is position it. And there's a great marketing book, a classic marketing book, one of my favorites ever, called Positioning. I recommend you read that if you're not really in tune with marketing concepts. It's really easy to read. It's a short book, but it really helps you understand the concept of positioning. And this is kind of how I have done it, and this is why it's so important. You're specializing. If you're watching this lecture, you're interested in bringing in this specialty. And when you specialize in business, what you're doing is you're differentiating yourself from the competition in your area. When you differentiate yourself, you're getting an advantage over the competition. You're doing something they're not doing in order to draw business and put yourself in a different category than the other companies that these patients might consider going to, and in doing so building your business. That advantage gives you a gain, and the difference, the whole way with myopia control that you gain is by educating your patients. That's how you build a myopia control practice. It happens on some levels bit by bit and through marketing and advertising, but really it takes so many exposures for people to really have a concept sink in and say they want it, that they're really going to need to hear from you in the exam lane. They're really going to need to talk to you, because the information on myopia control up to this point and continuing for a while has been poorly disseminated in the public. And there's also this time factor. As people out there who are great multifocal contact lens fitters and toric fitters know, you always get patients who come in and they'll say something like, I have astigmatism, but I can't wear, my other doctor told me I can't wear contacts. The chances are that they could. The doctor just saw the sill or the axis and the patient's age or what have you, and decided this wasn't going to be something they wanted to get involved in. If you have the time and you're willing to, you can fit almost any prescription. Well, with myopia control, it's a similar thing. The doctors aren't doing it because they're scared of it. They don't know what it is. It sounds scary to them. And really all myopia control is fitting contact lenses, and in some case fitting eyeglasses, and in some case prescribing eye drops. That is the business of optometry. The rocket science were the researchers who discovered how myopia control could be attained. The actual implementing of it, you're the most qualified providers on the planet to do that. So there's nothing scary about that. These parents that you take the time to talk to, they talk and they refer, and that's how you're going to slowly start to build your practice. And on top of that, you're going to use certain marketing methods as well. The first is traditional marketing. This is a picture of a pamphlet that we use in our office. You can see that on the front we have all our location information in very large print and easy to find address and phone number. And inside we have two Xerox, I said mimeograph, that is like so ancient. Two Xerox probably old too. Two copies of articles. One talks about the safety of myopia control / ortho-K, because ortho-K is my preferred method. And the other article is one on efficacy. And they're both very basic science articles, so that they're not, the content is not lost on people and they don't put it away without an understanding. But I also have in there links to PubMed research on peer-reviewed data to back up my statement that this is a real science and has real peer-reviewed data behind it. Because when the parents hear about it for the first time, we've all seen that reaction. What are you talking about? And then they want to go check it out themselves. I want to control for the most part where they get the information from. Of course, I'm always going to provide them with real good information. When you go online, when you go to Dr. Google, you don't know what they're going to be seeing. So we have our in-office marketing. We're very big in my office about educating the staff. And we educate everyone in our staff very intently on myopia control. We start with the front desk and the receptionists. We don't call them receptionists. They're front office people. And we teach them everything they need to know, so that when they're on the phone, they can answer the questions in an educated fashion that encourage the people calling in to delve deeper into our practice for those products and services that they're asking about, instead of getting a wishy-washy answer from the person on the phone and thinking that we may not know our stuff here. So that it's very important for all your products and services that your receptionists, that your front desk people are highly educated on that, especially when it comes to medical procedures and specialties that you're building. Ophthalmic techs, very much so. The ophthalmic techs are incredibly valuable members of our staff. Not only do they have a little more technical knowledge than the front desk, but they're passionate about learning. They love to be included by the doctors in all the latest things. If you're not teaching them, then they're feeling less valued in their career. The more they know, the more they feel valued. And not everybody in a practice works for money. They work for career satisfaction. And if they're interested in learning, and maybe even a lot of them I find are considering going into another field, maybe even optometry if they're an ophthalmic tech. So don't underestimate them and utilize them, because between the front desk people and the ophthalmic techs is an opportunity to expose those patients to the concepts and the treatment of myopia control twice at least before they even get in your exam lane, which makes your job easier. So involve them in the process. We do that intently. In office marketing, you can have posters or placards around the office, depending on what the design is of your office. We don't have a lot of junk on the walls. We have a really clean looking feel. But if you're not going to do posters, you can have looping videos, something like from that company Rendia, or another company that has educational videos that loop in your waiting area, in the reception area. So looping videos about myopia control instead of CNN or some bad news channel that people are it's gonna change their mood while they're in your office. Always have some good news up there. Don't show them the typical kind of stuff that we see that gets depressing. You always want them to get them out of that, because that moves them out of a purchase mode as well. Email blasts with your custom communication software. This is a big one. You can reach out with information on new products and services anytime to your patients, and the email blast methodology is the old newsletter that we used to send out when I started practicing in the early 90s. And you can reach out anytime with any kind of information. Why not myopia control, and why not repeatedly with some different articles that you share, because that is something that will expose them even more times before they come in your office. And the more exposures, the more likely they are to listen to your message. Some marketing studies in the past, they used to say it took 9 exposures before somebody would pay attention to a marketing ad. Now we believe studies have shown that it's as many as 27. So you really want to pelt them with this information on what you're doing, because they haven't heard about it before, and you want to be the one to tell them. In China, they're creative. There's a clinic I know in China where in the waiting area, they have these futuristic looking beds. They're pod-like beds, kind of like you would see on a spaceship when they're going into deep space, where they put people in suspended animation. But these pod beds are used for trial fitting orthokeratology on children. So the children the doctor will get a trial lens and during the insertion and removal, and send the child out into the waiting area for 20 minutes to sleep in one of these pods with their eyes closed. And then they'll bring them back in, they'll do a topo, and they'll see how much they were able to move the epithelium to get the effect so that helps them decide what the right trial lens will be, of course. And the purpose is there's a dual purpose there. It's a good use of the space, because it's good for trial fitting, but also patients in the waiting room look at this and they're like, what is going on? They're going to ask about it. It's going to catch their attention. And I'm not suggesting you guys put pods in your offices, but you can get creative with your marketing. And again, this is a new thing. There's no boundaries or limits to how you can promote it, as long as, of course, it's within an ethical framework. Develop a video. YouTube is a great place to put videos of happy patients. Of course, you'll want to get their permission before you do that. And we have or had videos of 5 or 6 children who were very young, who were very successful and very happy that they didn't have to wear glasses. And they actually told our story for us so that the other children who came in could see from children that it wasn't painful, and that kids were able to do it, and that the end result was something positive. So that's a very big, very important point, because you don't only have to get buy-in from the parents. Your life and your job is so much easier if you get buy-in from these kids as well. Educating parents. Like I said, most of the parents that are in your exam room have no idea. They don't assume that anything can be done about this, because that's their experience as a myope. So take the time to discuss the new paradigm. Where I am is a very well-educated, high-tech area with very technologically savvy people, and they want to know the technology behind this. They want to know what the studies say. What are the pros and the cons? What are Is there peer-reviewed data? What's the safety and efficacy? These are the kind of questions I get. You may or may not get those questions, but you have to be ready to answer questions like that. So you'll want to have resources to point them to with that kind of information. The parents talk and the parents refer. They sit around the mahjong table or what have you, and they talk about this wonderful thing their child's doing, and that's where you want to be the subject of the conversation at card games and things like that. Sorry, there's a loud motorcycle outside of my window. Tell them the story that I like to tell them about how this came about. Chickens and ping pong balls, how the first and the earliest studies on controlling myopia were depriving form vision to one eye while they allowed light to get in. And they did that by taking a scientific ping pong ball, so about a quarter of a ping pong ball, gluing it to the side of a chicken's eye, which in a lot of ways mirrors is a lot like a human's eye for research purposes. And the reason they used a ping pong ball is they wanted light to get in, but they didn't want form vision to get in. And when they deprived one eye's periphery of form vision in relation to the other eye, the myopia shot through the roof. So this is a great segue into a conversation on near work and vision and other habits that children have that are we believe are exacerbating the problem. They call that hemiretinal form deprivation. And when you see a child with an emo haircut like this, yes, I'm jealous of that hair, but but in a serious note, if they wear their hair like this too long, that eye that has the periphery deprived can worsen more than the other eye. It can also, some studies suggest, could spark myopic creep in both eyes. So you want to, talking about this and showing the parents how much knowledge you have, you want to talk about even before they decide to do this, they're going to go home and probably think about this, and you're going to have given them a lot of information that helps them like this. You're going to talk about working distance and digital device use. What I talk about is with the children, the parents insist that the child's eyes are going bad because they're doing so much near work. And there has been no study to show that near work causes any kind of worsening of the vision. Now, of course, that in our world, where we often make assumptions based on an N of one subject, right? Or what we've seen over the years, we assume that that's the culprit. But really, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the eye to use more of its peripheral vision. In the clinical talk, we talk about this, but we're not going to get too deep into why that is. But what I tell the parents, if you observe your child reading with an acute angle in their elbow, that's too close. They at least have to have a right angle, and preferably an obtuse angle. I don't know if the camera can see my arm right here, but an obtuse angle in their elbow when they're reading, because pushing things away from them helps take advantage of them stimulating the periphery around the macula, where the growth signal for axial elongation is. And this is something that they can do, have obtuse angle in their elbows, don't wear their hair in their face. If they don't wear their hair in an emo way, they can, but they have long hair, they should tie it back when they're reading. This young lady has the acute angle in her elbow, and her hair is hanging in her face. And that's just, if she has two myopic parents, she's just setting herself up for worsening there. And then these kids reading at night, we know that reading with having a night light on or reading at night isn't bad, but when you scrunch your world into this little space and you deprive your periphery, it's generally assumed that that's not good for this. So you're doing by teaching them all this is changing the hearts and minds about myopia, and giving parents, arming them with the tools and the knowledge they need to take the first steps around the house. Because if they don't come back this year for myopia control, but they take your word and they pay attention to this stuff, they're going to be prepared next time they come in if their child worsens to do this, because they realize that what they're doing isn't going to do enough. So teach them, of course, because of your obligation as a doctor, but also in teaching them, you are actually helping to advance your cause, because you know what's good for this kid better than that parent does. So reintroduce myopia as a disease, because it is a disease. Certain cultures have got it right and certain cultures hadn't. I know that my patients of Asian descent have, in their culture, you generally have always thought of myopia as a disease. And it is, because when we make that argument in the clinical talk as well, there's up to 40 times greater risk of macular degeneration, cataracts, glaucoma, all kinds of things in myopes. And that's a really important argument you need to tell them about. You're going to be not only doing the child a favor, 40, 50 years down the road or more, but you're also going to be doing society a favor, because the cost on society of myopic related eye disease is billions and billions of dollars. One of the tools that I like to use to position this is the calculator at the brianholdenvision.org site. I consult for Brian Holden, but this is really helpful because they have a calculator there that's easy to use. We pull it up on every screen in our office before the child's visit, so I could just launch into it. Excuse me, I'll type in the child's age, their current RX, their mode of correction, and it looks like this. Their suggested mode of correction. So on where the red circle is, you can see you can choose from multifocal soft contact lenses. If you click that little arrow in the live site, you get ortho-K, you get other options as well. And you put in the child's ethnicity, their age, their refractive error, and then whether you want it to be peer-reviewed data. And what it spits out is it shows you a range that child is likely to end up at in terms of their final prescription at age 17 if they don't do myopia control in the red, and if they do in the green. And you could see it can be as much as 3 times as high. And this is very compelling for the parents to see, and it's a great tool to explain what they can do and get into a discussion on the reasons why they may want to do this for their children. So I love this tool. We use it almost every day. So you can market, we just talked about educating the parents, market using community events. We all, sorry, it looks like, my PowerPoint stopped working. I'll just talk about this in a minute. It's restarting. That's interesting. You get to see my screen. So let me just open this up again. The events that I'm talking about are the things like health fairs, and in our area we have a very large Asian population, and they have, here we go. So we have Asian Sunday schools. We used to get in front of the Asian Sunday schools and talk. The Asian Sunday schools are interesting because the kids are in school and the parents have a social hour, usually in the local high school gymnasium. And they welcome local businesses and healthcare providers and people. Look, this looks like that I'm having some technical difficulties here. We'll see how this goes. I'm not going to touch it for a minute. But that we would get in front of them and talk, and we became the doctors of note for myopia control and ortho-K, because we would go every couple of Sundays there and talk about a different related subject with them. And like I said, in that community, they're familiar with it because their relatives, mostly the ones from China, but a lot of the other Asian countries, they know about this, they've heard about it, and they're happy to find not only somebody in the area that will do that, but has experience and is willing to come talk to them and tell them discuss what's going on. So those Chinese Sunday schools, we go to the local primary school nurses and we drop off our cards. Depending on where you are, that may or may not be a good thing to do. In our county, the nurses aren't supposed to support specific local businesses, but if they know about us and they have our cards, when they run into somebody outside of school, they'll remember to tell them about this. Or, perhaps they don't abide by all the rules and they let parents who they know their child needs some vision care know about us. Health fairs we talked about as well. And we incentivize, with ortho-K especially, incentivize patients for referrals. And this works like if a patient refers an ortho-K patient in, like their friend, and they bring their child in, then we credit their account for their next year's ortho-K with $100. And we've had parents send 5 people in. So it's a very, very lucrative, and they appreciate that opportunity as well. So, sorry, I'm getting, this is really weird. I never have any problems here. Getting the word out. Give me a sec. Okay, Google position. Now, this is a big soapbox thing for me. You've got to be able to be found in Google for the products and services locally that you want to be found for. And you have to be found on page 1, or hopefully to the top, towards the top, if not at the top of page 1, with lots of pretty yellow stars next to your name. Because this is really the 3-pack in Google, especially the little thing that pops up showing local businesses. that's the new Yellow Pages. I mean, it's not even new anymore. My PowerPoint again stopped working. This might be my computer. I apologize. This is very odd that this happened. Let me just do a little bit of detective work here real quick. I'll talk longer at the end. No, I don't see a problem with with anything with my programs. Let me just close a couple of things here, and hopefully that'll help. Everything's closed. Okay, let's try this again. So sorry about this. It's out of my control. Okay. So this all happens, the way that you get elevated in Google is by creating content. And what is content? Content is what an end user is looking for. It's what you look for when you go to Google to search. And it's what you derive value from when you find it. So you like Google because you type something in, a child eye doctor that helps correct myopia, and it comes up, and what comes up first is a quality business. So that's because that whoever it was that came up first produces good content. And so content is, as far as you're concerned, are videos, they're blog posts, they're photos and podcasts, tweets, even just Facebook posts about things that people are searching information on. And when they find them, if that content adds value to their personal lives, then they subconsciously like that and they take note. And that's what you want to do. That's your goal of internet marketing. Other things that qualify as content include quizzes and games and humor. Charitable efforts are really big, especially with the millennial generation and the younger generations. Contests, everybody loves a contest. You can use it to poll or crowdsource your audience and find out what you need to be doing to make them happier, or what you could be doing better, and what you do excellent as well. And video blogging as well. And the content matters, and the reason it matters is because Google elevates companies that produce good content consistently over time ahead of companies that want to get found for the same products and services that don't produce content. So in your internet marketing effort, on your website, on your blog, in your Facebook page, you need to have a system of putting good information out there that's not heavy on the marketing side, that's not really salesy, but it's just really good information for people. You put a little piece about what you get paid for out there, and that will come back to you in droves because people want good information. Content matters when people, this is the key of this is the key point of this whole thing. Patients search online for the products and services you hope to be found for. And the way that they search, they use keywords. A keyword, for instance, for general patients is optometrist. Key phrases is more than one word. It's like in my area, it'd be optometrist and the city. I'm in Rockville, Maryland. That would be a key phrase. And then a long-tailed key phrase would be when they type in, my child's vision is changing and I need help. And people do that. And so if you have produced content, written content, with typed content with those keywords and those key phrases, and as many of those long-tailed key phrases that you think are popular to type, and you can see some of them when you type them in Google because that Google Instant drops a list down of what people type, then you can produce content with those phrases in it. Google will match that with you when parents are searching those keywords and key phrases and elevate you for those products and services that you hope to be found of. So it's imperative to produce and publish content on your business, internet, real estate, that for Google to match those with the people who are querying those things, like you do when you query something that you're looking for. So here's a great example. You can see this picture of Google this is from a couple years ago. But if you look at that picture, there's two, they call them organic listings at the top, but they're really not organic listings. You can see the little green where those are advertisements, and people are on to the fact that those are ads. Their eyes generally fall down to the real listings. And there you can see my practice, Shady Grove Eye and Vision Care, with 84 great reviews, generally great reviews. And we come up first in that 3-pack. Of course, the one above us doesn't count because that's an ad as well. So this 3-pack is the modern equivalent of the Yellow Pages. And there is this is something that we have done in our website to market it by creating content over the years. I've written over 700 blog posts over time consistently, and that helped get us the elevation we wanted. I'm not saying you have to do as many as that, but even if you started in a month or two of doing this consistently, you'll see results, a month or two or three. And if you don't have the time to do that, you can always sign up for myopiainstitute.com. We have a doctor locator, and we do that content for you. This is my business. I don't want to spend too much time on it because this is a COPE lecture, but that's something that elevates practices like Stone Oak Vision Source to the top of the list when people search for it. And the homepage looks like that. So pricing, everybody always wants to talk about pricing. Of course, we can only say so much because we don't want to be accused of collusion, but myopia control is a premium service. You're using your time and your expertise to offer something that not many people offer. You're going to have investment in capital equipment like an A scan, hopefully, a good A scan, because that's really crucial, and we talk about that in the clinical talk. But this is a premium service. We don't want to offer discounts. We don't want to accept vision insurance, maybe the contact lens benefit minus, but this is really something that you have to be on board with and have high self-esteem and know that you can charge what your training and what your expertise are worth, and you should, with everything. And also, you don't want to go too crazy on that. You want to charge what the market will bear. And the strategy of a lot of people for a lot of different things is to try a price point and then elevate it for different things until there's pushback and then back off. And that's the price that your market will bear. And that's something that some people do to determine the price. You also have to think about what you want to earn per hour, what your chair cost is, and as opposed to general eye care with a specialty, you may consider, you may think I want to earn more for that specialty because I have that opportunity. You have to determine what kind of guarantees and warranties and how your replacement lens, if it's ortho-K or distance center multifocals, how you're going to work that and work that into your fee structure so that if you have a few replacements or returns, it doesn't cut into your net margins on this. And in determining your fees, you want to decide whether you're going to have a global fee or not. And what I mean by that is, are you going to charge X amount for the whole kit and caboodle once a year and they're done and they don't have to worry about anything else and not getting nickeled and dimed? If you do that, the only problem is from an accounting perspective, you're not going to be able to really determine at the end of the year with your accountant what your cost of goods are because it's rolled into easily determine your cost because it's rolled into that price. So I recommend in your practice management software, you don't have you have a fee for myopia control and a product fee so that you can better manage your practice as well. You can call it a global fee if you'd like, but on the back end, you need to be able to determine what those different products, how much you're spending on those different products. And how do these fees differ from fees charged for standard contact lens services? You have to get that shtick down because patients are going to say, well, why is this so much more? And then you have to talk about the science and the additional work you're going to be involved in monitoring that child's myopia. In our office, when we do myopia control, we have the child, we do the initial consult, fit, and everything. And then we have them back at 3, 6, and 9 months, year one, to check their axial length, because that's a real measure of whether their myopia is creeping. And if we catch it early, if creeping more than a certain amount, which we talk about in the clinical talk, then we can change the method that we're using, or we can apply a secondary method. Like, in other words, if the child's in contact lenses, we may add atropine or something like that. And we just stay on top of it so they get the value that we are offering them. Determine how you're going to accept insurance. And I strongly discourage anyone from discounting. Again, one parent gets a discount, the other parents hear about it, and they expect a discount. And all of a sudden, you're doing the same thing that the VCPs, the vision care plans, have done to us. To have value for your service. Do not succumb to what I call OLC, or optometric low self-esteem. So why add this specialty? Well, you're offering therapy now, not cause or a crutch. In the clinical lecture, we talk about how prescribing single vision contacts and glasses we've been feeding the myopia beast by creating peripheral hyperopia, which is the trigger for axial length elongation all these years. Now, we're not guilty of anything because those are the technologies that we had at our fingertips, and we had to give our patients what they want, clear vision. Now that we know that we can give them clear vision and control axial length to a degree. The peer-reviewed studies say 60% or more, then we can offer a therapy, a medical therapy for their myopia creep, not a crutch, or not to cause additional creep, or give them a crutch so that each year they could expect to continue to change at the level they have been. There's increased revenue with the specialty, a tremendous profit center for your practice. It's generally not covered like we talked about before, and the referrals, after a year of doing this, the referrals just start kicking in. And you know, when you do a good job educating the parents, when you do a good job with the children, when you do some of that marketing to the local community and your name gets out there, the referrals generate themselves after a while. And it's not rocket scientists. It's not rocket science. The people, like I said earlier, the people that came up with, that figured this out, the people like Carla Zadnik, the people like Jeff Willeen, the people like Brian Holden, and the people down in Australia, Kate Gifford, all the scientists that figured this out, they did rocket scientists, but this is optometry, contact lenses, glasses, eye drops, and there's no professional on the planet that is more prepared to practice myopia control than you. And you can do it with just a simple additional few hours of learning. You can get started, and then you learn on the go and you attend more CE, just like you've done in other areas of your practice. So I don't want to hear about anybody sending out to a clinic that's offering their patients myopia control, because if you lose your myopes, nobody can point a finger at your practice doing poorly financially except yourself, because we need to keep those patients in-house. So one of the things that we spend a lot of time on in our office is informed consent. We want these parents to, this is specifically with Ortho-K, this is an Ortho-K heavy talk, because that's the method I use the most. But we talk about, I'm going to see if I can move this so I can, yeah, there we go. We talk a lot about, in here, a lot of CYA, cover your A things that are important, and that we find that parents often would come back questioning or having questions about. So if it's clearly written, we have them read these and we have them sign them. And I don't generally like to read my slides, but I'm going to read through this and I'll highlight things, why we have them in there and why we talk about them. So orthokeratology, also known as vision shaping, CRT, and Ortho-K, is a procedure where rigid gas permeable plastic medical devices are utilized while sleeping to temporarily reduce or eliminate refractive error throughout the course of one's waking hours. Now the points here, we touch on vision shaping, CRT, and Ortho-K, because parents come in and they want CRT. They don't want anything else because their friend had CRT, and we have to explain to them, we can do CRT for you. CRT is a marketing term. It's a particular lens that we work with, and we work with other lenses too. One might be better for your child, and you have to, you know, tell them that you're going to do the best job you can for their child. CRT may or may not be that product. So we include those so they know that we're offering all of those things, because often, and that's not rare that happens. And then we talk about rigid gas permeable plastic medical devices. We don't use the word contact lenses, because again, people hear contact lens and they equate it on a financial level with contact lenses. And when you position it as it is, as a medical procedure, then you eliminate a lot of the confusion and question about how this and contact lenses differ. And then the big word here is temporarily reduce or eliminate refractive error throughout the course of one's waking hours. So there's nothing in here. They can't come back at me and say, you told me this would permanently fix my child's vision. Believe me, back in the day, that would happen rarely, but of course I never would say that. It just doesn't do that, and we know that. And I wouldn't market anything falsely that way, but it's important to have that in writing. So we'll have them sign off on that. And then the next one will say most patients with RXs under -6 diopters may get several hours to several days of reduced prescription, and this may eliminate the need for corrective eyewear for a good part of the day. To achieve maximum results, patients must sleep in the lenses for 8 hours or more. Now, under -6, of course, we've all fit over -6. I mean, I think the best I ever fit was a 7. And of course, I fit people who are 9s if the parents understand that that child may end up needing to wear a -2 spec RX for the myopia control. And people want that sometimes, and so their children can wear thinner lenses and still get myopia control. But in general, the FDA here in the US says that Ortho-K is only approved for -3. But off-label, I know, and you know, we can get much higher depending on the case. And I want them to know that, you know, it's not always going to give more than several hours, especially the higher the number is, it's unknown what we're going to get. And then I've emphasized the point that they must sleep in the lenses for 8 hours or more regularly. Now, this is a big thing. Whenever somebody comes in with a clinical problem related to ortho-K, 99 times out of 100, it's because they're either not getting 8 hours of sleep and they're getting, you know, iffy results, waxing and waning results. And then the other 1% of the time is, you know, if they're, you know, something else, whatever, they get something in their eye, dirt in their eye, or whatever. I rarely, if ever, in my whole career, I've had one infectious keratitis. And we're very diligent on teaching and ensuring they clean them and they come back annually to see us. But this part explains to them things that may be causing their child not to have the perfect results, so they're prepared for that. And then we list the potential complications, and I discuss each of these with the parent face to face, and what we do in each instance. If there's any pain, photophobia, or both, that lasts after the lens is removed, I tell the parents, you have to get them in to see us. You don't have to worry about calling your insurance. You don't have to worry about getting an appointment. You come in if we're open, and if it's after hours, here's my cell phone number. And they've been very respectful about not using my cell phone number generally. And when they do, it's something very serious. So I appreciate that, especially because this is a premium service that they're paying a lot of money for. They feel a lot of comfort when they know they have access to the doctor. And then I talk about the risks of infectious keratitis and how important hand washing and lens cleaning and avoiding water and annual follow-up is to all of this. Really, really crucial part of this. We go over and over again. They hear this from the doctors and they hear it from the ophthalmic techs in the insertion and removal side. They hear it the day that they come in for this when we order the lens, and they hear it the day of their INR. So they hear it 3 times actually. Then we talk about what to do if these complications ensue. If pain, photophobia, or both, and last after the lenses are removed, they have to come in. I tell them most of the time, almost every time, it's some kind of scratches. And sometimes it's dryness, and a lot of the times it's allergies. So it's not a worst case scenario, but it's not worth the risk of not having it checked. So we also want to give the eye a break for a day or two if the epithelium is disturbed at all. So we talk about the only serious thing that can happen from ortho-K is an infectious keratitis, and these are the signs and symptoms, the pain and photophobia, and then I give them my cell phone. So at the end of the informed consent, we say, I have them sign initial each of these and date it. I've been informed and understand the risks associated with extended wear orthokeratology lenses. This is for obvious reasons. This is for medical legal purposes. It's not a legal document. I'll give them a copy of this, but I want them to know that we did tell you, we told you so. So that if they don't show up for an annual appointment, they come in 2 years later and there's some problems. There's decentering, and we have to have the kids out of the lenses for 6 weeks, or all kinds of things. They, God forbid, get an infectious keratitis. We told them, so we have it in writing. So we're off the hook there. If you don't have that in writing, you know, all kinds of things can happen, all kinds of headaches can happen, from being reported to the board to maybe getting sued if there is something serious because you don't have it documented that you told them about that. The second thing is, I understand how orthokeratology will temporarily reduce the need for prescription eyewear. I understand it will not permanently improve myopia or astigmatism. I can't tell you how crucial this is. I can't tell you how many times parents have come back, even after signing this document, and said, well, you told me that it would reduce his prescription, or that that he wouldn't need to wear the lenses anymore. No, I never told you that. As a matter of fact, you signed this right here a couple of years ago, showing you that I told you this, not only verbally, because you don't just want to hand this to them and not tell them. I walk them through the informed consent, but I also have it in writing from you. So they have no argument there. And in the end, this is my policy. You may or may not want to implement this, but in the end, I say, I understand that fees for orthokeratology and fees and materials are refundable in full if the devices are unsuccessful in correcting vision, and only for that reason. And I have that in there because I don't earn bad profits. If I don't deliver a service that people come to me for successfully, I'm not going to take their money for it. And in all the years that I've done this, I don't think I've had to refund more than 2 people. These were usually children who had such severe seasonal allergies that even after treating the allergies, they couldn't tolerate these lenses on any level. But I want them to know that, that if you are worried that your child is not going to learn to put them in, that is not a reason that you'll get a refund. Once you do this, you have to commit, because if you think there's an easy out, a lot of parents are just going to throw in the towel. They have to know that child needs to learn, and that's a big incentive for them to stay in it. But again, bad profit signs in our office that say you'll be charged a late fee, anything negative like that we don't have in our office. We don't have late fees, we don't nickel and dime people, and we don't make bad profits. And this is how we don't do that with OrthoK. So how to get started with myopia control methods. Whoops, sorry about that. One of the best education, unfortunately it was in May this year, oh, killing me, May 15th to 19th, we just missed it. We would have missed it. Oh, that was 19. But it was recently, was this Vision by Design, and there's the American Academy of Orthokeratology and Myopia Control. They're a fantastic organization run by Dr. Carrie Hertzberg. Many of you may have heard of it. They have a website, they have Facebook page. There's a lot of interesting information that they publish to help you learn how to manage and run a myopia control practice. And the Vision by Design conference is a fantastic 5-day event where they have everything from education like you're getting tonight to wet labs, where you can actually learn how to fit everything from orthokeratology to scleral to some of the latest technologies to procarid, amniotic membrane, things like that. It's a really hands-on conference with a lot of passionate ODs. These are the people that you want to be around because they are passionate about learning and passionate about practicing optometry at the highest level of their education, and that's why it's such a great thing. And I have this thing I call the 5% rule. Actually, I didn't coin that. It was coined by SIBA back in the day. They had the SIBA MBA, and they made the example that most people will go to a conference or a talk like this, and they'll be all psyched and pumped when they're done, and then they'll go back to their office, and they will only implement about 5% of what they learn. So I encourage people to not fall into that bucket of people who get so busy with their life and other things that they don't get to apply what they learn on any significant level. To write a bullet, I used to do this and I still do it sometimes, a bullet list of the most interesting points for any talk, put it on a piece of paper and stick it right above your computer. You don't have to get them all done the day or the week or the month after you get back for the conference, but leave that paper up there and check off each item that you implement or you change until you've gone through that whole list. And let's bring that 5% up to 95%, because this is great information that you're going to learn at conferences like this. And hopefully some of the stuff I taught you is great, and it's going to result in direct profits for you almost immediately once you get started. Now, what are some good websites and some good resources for you? Well, managemyopia.org is a relatively new site. This slide's already a couple years old, but it summarizes the data on myopia management. And this is a great place to send parents to, because they're looking for summaries, and the things that they don't understand, you can offer to discuss with them on the phone or in the office. But if they want to do their own research, just going to Dr. Google and typing myopia control, it's a nightmare. They come across all kinds of kooky stuff like the Bates method, and you don't want them like seeing that stuff. And let's say that they see that, you're not going to know whether they go with some of those other methods that are mail order methods. You're not going to hear until the next year. So make sure that you, to some degree, control the resources that they get their information from. Myopiaprofile.com is more of a clinical site for you doctors. It's run by two of the most respected clinicians in myopia control. They're in Australia, the Giffords. Kate Gifford is the one I'm more familiar with, and her husband is the other Gifford. They have incredible information on there, and they have a great Facebook page that you can join and just watch the conversation between the people that discovered myopia control. Watch how they talk about the peer-reviewed studies and what's going on and what they've learned. And it's fascinating to be a fly on the wall. Sometimes those conversations are way above my head, but I love to be in there and ask questions and learn. And I get a lot of great information from that as well. Myopiaprevention.org is a great site that is written for parents and students and teachers and doctors with extensive research and literature, and it's just great information. My Kids Vision, again, It has an online tool that helps parents assess and manage the risks for the children, not unlike the Brian Holden calculator that I absolutely adore. And then the myopiainstitute.com is a patient-facing website. That's the one that I have a commercial interest in. A really helpful thing on there is we have it translated into Mandarin, because the parents of a lot of these children are very highly educated professionals, many in technology and biotechnology, but some of the technological words in English are not easy to translate. So by putting it in Mandarin, I'm able to give them a direct line into what we're talking about, what we're going on, without them having to work harder because English isn't their first language to figure it out. So here's what you're going to do on Monday, of course. Give yourself a couple days off before you get to work on this. I think I gave this on a Friday, I guess. Low-hanging fruit. Make sure your Google business page is filled out. Now, your Google business page, anybody with a business has one, even if you don't know about it. Google set one up for you. You need to take control of it. And the way that you used to get there was you would go to google.com/mybusiness, one word. And then you search your business in there and you'll find your page. Take control of it, and you want to fill it out with all of the information you can: photos, hours of operation, videos if possible, pictures of your staff, pictures of the outside, pictures of the inside, information on your blog and your website and everything, because the richer that Google page is, the higher it will show up in that 3-pack we talked about. That's where your Google business page is. And the value in having that and filling it out is gleaned in that manner. Join the myopiainstitute.com, up your social media game, because the more you're online talking about it using these keywords and key phrases and long-tailed key phrases that we talked about, the more people in your area will find you for the products and services that you want to be found for. Obviously, if you're spend an hour of your life watching this lecture, that's what you want. Talk to parents, all the parents, about this who have myopic children, even if it's casual. Even if you don't have time, make sure you get a little seed in there, and then start pelting them with stuff from your practice management, your patient communication software periodically, so you keep the message fresh and in their head. Teach your staff, and of course, anyone can always reach out to me by PMing me on Facebook or using this email, aglazier@youreyesight.com, to ask me questions. I love giving back. I always am easy to communicate with, to talk to, and especially around subjects of myopia control. So I am now going to avail myself for questions. I assume they're going to be typed in.
Thank you, Dr. Now share the questions that were submitted. There's a question here. It says, what's the minimal equipment you'd advise to start advertising that you do myopia control? For reference, we don't have an A scan and don't fit Ortho-K, but we do MySight and atropine.
Okay, that's a great question. There is, unfortunately, for me, there's no data that says that having an A scan is required to practice myopia control. But serious practitioners understand that refractive error is the second gauge of whether myopia is creeping. The most important gauge is axial length, because that's the disease process. The thinning of the posterior retina through the stretching is the pathology. So without being able to gauge that, you really won't have a good handle on whether you're actually doing myopia control. And if there's a practice down the road that has an A scan and you don't, well, they're technically practicing a higher level than you are. I think it's and I also think it's important to have a if you can only afford an ultrasound, that's fine, but there's too much measurement disparity with ultrasound, because you put a different pressure on the eye each time. You come in at a slightly different angle each time, so you don't get as great. And axial lengths are very sensitive. They're down to 0.03 millimeter error. So if you can, you want to get an IOL master, maybe a used one, and invest in it, because if you're charging properly for myopia control, you'll pay that machine off really well. But yes, you can practice without an IOL master. At this point in time, people can't really argue that you have to have one, because there's no data to suggest somebody can practice better that way. But I think you need one.
Okay, thank you so much. I don't see any other questions coming in, unless somebody has another question for Dr. Glazier. So at this time, I'd like to thank you for your insightful presentation.